Good morning. My name is Amy Griffin, and I have the privilege of serving as the moderator for this panel, which means that I get to facilitate conversations and input based on not knowledge or subject matter expertise, but because I am holding the mic. Okay, so as a member of Kingdom Fellowship AME since 2010, I'm privileged and honored to be a part of the innovation that is K-FAME in doing the Economic Empowerment Innovation Concert. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and talk a bit about, briefly, why they are here, what their role is, and what their personal relationship is with the concept of financial resilience. We'll start with Kayode.
Amy, can everybody hear me? Great, awesome. Thanks, Amy. My name is Kayode Ajay, and I am a senior portfolio manager at a company called Brown Capital in Baltimore, Maryland, which basically means I invest in stocks on behalf of clients, half institutional, half individuals, largely through mutual funds. What brings me here is I've had a just desire to share what the knowledge I've gained over the years. I've been in the investment business for 20 years and in a finance role for about 23, 24 years. So it's been just a real joy of mine to learn and to give out the knowledge that I've gained in the process. So hopefully I can be helpful in some way. And just in terms of my relation with financial resilience, I tell people that I've been thinking about retirement since I was 16 years old. I don't know why, I just kind of how I've been wired. So I've kind of structured things in a way that gives me an opportunity to not have to work for some indefinite period or well before, the traditional retirement age. So I just think my mindset and just how I approach finances has always been, I think it's served me well through the years, and just wanted to share, whatever I've picked up, and hopefully I can be helpful to someone in the process. So thank you it's good to be here.
Hi, good morning. My name's Kina, like Tina with a K, if you see it spelled and you need help with the pronunciation. But I am a financial coach. I predominantly work with individuals one-to-one who are high income earners. My goal is to help people get rid of the shame that they experience with their finances so they can ultimately have more choice with how they're spending their money, to fund milestone goals. Like, people want to buy a home, they want to get married, they want to have kids, but they feel like money is in the way. The reason that I'm here is I love to talk about money. In every conversation that I'm in, I find a way to just slide a money conversation in there. You can ask any of my friends. They tell me and point that out all the time. But ultimately, when I think about my work, I actually used to be in education. And as an educator, and I was also a vice principal, I wanted my students, and I also wanted the teachers that I supported to be able to have a transformation. And so with finances, I'm able to support people in doing that. And so whenever I can give people knowledge to help them think about their money in a different way, like, I want to be in that conversation, because money is something that I think oftentimes people say they're bad with math, and because I also was a math teacher, I'm like, you're not allowed to say that. Money is more than math. It's really emotional, and it touches every single area of your life. And so I think that when people are able to get underneath that layer of it, then they're much more willing to look at it. And so I like to bring a light-hearted side to finances. In terms of financial resilience, when I really think about resilience and how that relates to me, I think about choice. Like, I always, in my nature and being, I don't really like to ask for permission. I want choice. And so when I'm thinking about my own personal finances and how I've navigated through different financial situations, it's always, how can I position myself to have choice?
Kenneth.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kenneth Clark. I'm a financial advisor with Peak Financial Wealth Management. We're a Black-owned financial advisory group in Silver Spring, Maryland, headquartered in downtown Silver Spring. I'm a financial advisor, but in a first path was an electrical engineer. So electrical engineer by training, switched gears, kind of a career changer, and working with folks. I realized sitting with computers, I never, generally didn't see the end result. I didn't see how it impacted folks directly. Today, I can sit down with folks, whether it's by Zoom, across the table, in person, elsewhere, and I can put forth plans that we can agree on and then work towards executing. I've got clients across the age spectrum and across the income spectrum, and our goal is to, as my colleagues just shared, is to share information, and I think educate might not be the right word. I'll find a synonym in a second, but educate folks to help them understand what they should and perhaps shouldn't be doing with their money, right? I'm a product of my mother's a DC native. My father grew up on a farm in North Carolina. And I think like many households, I had one parent who said, don't let anybody know how much money you make. I had another parent who said, you've got to share. You got to have the conversations. You got to talk. So if that resonates with you, you know, there's things, there's nuggets I'm sure that we'll share that might help you make some great choices. Resilience is really just, I think, girding yourself to help you understand what you should and shouldn't do based on current economic situations, based on current administration, based on what's going on in the world, whether it's war, whether it's you know, international challenges, but just what should you be doing so that you can be comfortable and careful no matter what the economic circumstances.
So just sort of housekeeping, I'm Amy again, and I'm an estate planning attorney. So we talk about resilience and just sort of life planning. But what I want to remind you is that there is a scan that is for questions. So if you have questions that are the bubble up, you can, the scan code, right? Is this the scan code that? No. Oh. Oh, but it's at the door? All right.
It may be better for people, right?
Can we?
Go to the mic, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Make it work to ask a question.
So, yeah, so if you have questions, scan code, and the high technology world that we live in, it will move forward. So we're going to start off with defining what financial resilience is. What does it mean? Because we want to have those working definitions so that we're all having the same contemplative space. And we'll start with you, Mr. Clark.
Sure, and I think we touched on it, but in essence, it's how can you position yourself financially such that you can, you have the assets available to handle your needs and assets available hopefully to grow them so that you can handle future needs. And the resilience comes in that works for you despite what times we're in, despite what economic times we're in.
Is there anything you want to add to that?
I was going to say, just from my personal work, because I literally like open people's bank accounts and look at it with them, it's not even how much you make, but how well you manage your money. I see a lot of people that I'm working with, and I'm talking like, you know, I make $600,000 a year, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have money in the bank. So when I'm thinking about resilience for you or for my clients, it's about how well are you managing the money that you make? What systems do you have? When you have systems for how you are managing your money, and I'll say this right now, a list of bills is not a system, you are able to think about, okay, how do I want it to be consistent with how I'm managing my money? What type of control do I have? Like I think about earlier this year when I was talking to people who were losing their federal jobs, and they were literally a paycheck away from losing everything that they had, even though they made good money, if you will. And so that's why I always go back when I'm thinking about resilience, like what choices are you making with the money that you have right now, so that when you need to adapt, you don't know when, but whenever you do need to adapt, you're able to adapt to that situation.
Yeah, I'd piggyback off that. I think I define it as the ability to withstand unexpected events in life, shock, like she mentioned, job loss, what have you. I think the way you should approach your money is you hope for the best but prepare for the worst. I think if you do that, you could get sick, you could have to be on disability, all sorts of things happen, and I'm sure we all have life stories here that we could share. But you should, your car breaks down, whatever it is, you shouldn't. If you've been given the opportunity, you shouldn't be in a position. Try to avoid putting yourself in a position where you are having to, you added stress and burden to your life, or what's already probably a stressful situation if you're out of work. So if you kind of plan with that and you spend time, you may never need. It's like insurance. You have it. You hope you never need to use it, but you're glad you have it when you need it. So just add to that.
Trying to be really practical. One of the things they always tell us, is that we should start saving for the rainy day. But when it's raining, it's too late to start. So the question is, we're in our financially crazy times. What do we do? What are the behaviors that we can employ now? What are the thoughts that we can do now in this, during this time? Not that we should have done 20 years ago.
Sure. So I think generally we start with understanding, and Keena spoke to it earlier, the behaviors that people have around money and your relationship with money, right? Some of us are savers, right? Whatever we have extra goes in the bank, under the mattress, perhaps in the walls of the house, I don't know. But, and then we have others who are investors, and then we have third camp that falls in the middle, right? So it's understanding how is your DNA made? Are you a saver, investor, or somewhere in the middle? And then designing a plan to make sure that we can execute processes, execute the plan so that it works for you, so that you're not tossing and turning at night, so you're not waking up stressed, wondering what happened overnight or what's going to happen today. But I think Amy touched on it, that, emergency funds. So I think most of us have read you should have anywhere between 3 and 6 months of emergency money saved. Many of us don't have that, right? So it's not that I need it tomorrow, but I need to have a plan, a process so that I can get there. And it might be putting away $100 each check, $100 a week, whatever works for your income. That's what you need to put in place. Secondly, is understanding what else is available to you so that you can get some decent returns on your money. Keeping it in the bank isn't going to help you keep up with inflation. Maybe high-yield savings accounts, corporate bonds, municipal bonds, depending on where you are in life, mutual funds, stocks. What's going to work for you? Again, what's going to allow you to have a low-stress day, week, month, and not have you tossing and turning, wondering, I wonder what my money's doing. Am I making money? Am I saving money? Am I checking it every hour? You shouldn't have to check it every hour. Allow us to check it every hour, right? But just putting forth a plan that's going to allow you to meet those milestones, not necessarily meet them tomorrow, but meet them on a schedule.
You mentioned like rainy day, like if it was raining today. Mm-hmm. So honestly, it's like, look at your numbers, like the things that you are avoiding, you have to know what they are. Stop assuming what you pay for. Everybody, I feel like, knows that they pay rent or they pay mortgage, that they have utilities, but I want you to also know the little things that are going out of your account. Like, I have clients that are like, I didn't know I was paying for SiriusXM, and there's a $300 annual charge. So there's a concept called zero-based budget. Like, I want you to know exactly, if you have $8,000 that's coming in, sit down and literally name everything. But I tell people, think about the things that make you roll your eyes because you had to put it on your credit card. Write those things down, break them down. If you find yourself saying, I don't spend money on that, that's probably a lie. You probably do. You probably do buy gifts. You probably do travel, even if it's a weekend trip, right? It's not that expensive. Okay, you just spent $800 and you just went to Baltimore, right? But get really discreet with what you're naming. It's going to help even though it might be stressful in the moment, it's actually going to create a sense of calm because you're going to know what are the things that I can put to the side right now and what do I actually need to live off of. One of my mentors calls it like, what are the expenses that I need to actually keep the lights on, right? Like you don't have to go to Whole Foods. You be like, all right, never mind. I'll just go to Giant or whatever. Like I can go to Aldi. So maybe your grocery bill won't be as high if you're in a rainy day season. But think about, like I said, what are the things that you need in order to keep the lights on? Get really clear on those. Get clear on your kind of like nice to haves. One of the things I do with my clients when I'm operationalizing this and they're not necessarily in a rainy day season is I have something that I call a 3 money bucket system. I tell them have an account for your bills, have an account for savings, and have an account for spending. I call their spending money their Chuck E. Cheese tokens. When we were little and we went to Chuck E. Cheese, when we ran out of tokens, our mom told us to go sit down until she gave us some more. And so you got to do that with yourself. Like, this is it. I ain't got no more until you get paid again. But you have a set amount that you're allowing yourself to spend. And so you're back to when I was talking about consistency. I want you doing the same thing with your money all the time, even if it is coming down where you're like, Keena, I got a settlement check for my job and I'm trying to just manage the settlement that I have. Break it down by how much you can spend per month. Operationalize that so that way you know how much runway you have from that severance or settlement check that you have.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think my two panelists did a great job addressing it. I definitely agree with the account for every dollar you spend. The only other thing I would mention is, you have income and expense. Those are the two key line items. Find a way to expand that gap as much as you can, right? Where can you, pick up extra jobs, make a little extra money, and then where can you reduce your expenses? That's ultimately the name of the game, and doing that for long enough, right? So I think, and so you can't do those things certainly on the expense side without taking the time to know what you're spending your money on. All right, so there are two different ways to increase your wealth, right? You can either increase income, decrease expenses, or do both, right? And if you can do both, that's even better. So I think it's just being very, very mindful and very deliberate. And I think that's a good, if you're in that season, or even if you're not in that season, that's just a good practice and a good mindset to have in general. And there's so many different ways to make money now, even if there's so many different gig jobs and all sorts of things you can pick up on the side just to make a little extra money. And it could even only be for a season, right? If that's the case, to get you over that hump, and then you can sort of, recalibrate.
Can I also add, because I feel like there's also entrepreneurs. I don't know how many people in the room are entrepreneurs. I work for myself.
How many people are entrepreneurs? Wow.
Right. So I would say like this, your business finances inform your personal finances. So if you're not managing your business finances well, then your personal finances, they ain't gonna be doing well either. And so you're gonna be robbing your business to, Peter and Paul just look different. But just making sure, like the same things, I address a lot of things from the personal finance side, but however you're managing your personal finances will bleed over into how you're managing your business finances. And if you just take in draws hoping that, this is gonna get me by, it's not gonna get you by because you don't have a plan. And I will call you out on not having a plan. So that's one thing I wanted to add.
And if I may, so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So to that point, it's very important to have the right tax professional in your pocket, right? Not just someone who's filling out the 1040 and saying sign here, but someone who's helping you plan, right? So you need a tax planner, someone who's helping for the next year. Should you be taking draws? Should you be on payroll as a W-2? How are you handling employees? All that, the whole scope. And if you don't have someone who's telling you or suggesting how you should manage that going forward, then you're in a bad place. I had to find the right words.
Broke is what he said.
One of the things that my law firm, we encourage everybody to have what we call a personal board of directors. We say PBOD, right? So you should have a financial advisor, an accountant, of course, an estate planning attorney, but having those folks work on your behalf collectively, right? So this is great. Okay, let's go to credit. Credit is a big barrier. What tools or strategies have helped your clients or communities improve their credit in tangible ways?
So sometimes I'm like, why you need credit? That's one question I ask people, because I think there's a lot of like misinformation. I'm like, are you getting ready to buy something? What are we looking at? I think in a practical sense, if I have someone who's like, I need to improve my credit score right now, we might look to increase some of their credit lines because it'll change their credit utilization. But ultimately, when I'm thinking about credit, I'm the budget girl. I'm going back to your budget. Like, I want to make sure that you are not using your credit. And I am not like, hey, don't use credit cards. But what I'm saying is that your credit cards become your second, third bank account. And so your relationship with your credit is to be like, oh, my Visa, it can hold that for a little bit. My MasterCard, it can hold that for a little bit. And so if you're not actually addressing the reasons that you're in debt, then you're not going to be able to build your credit, because even though you could be throwing $2,000, $3,000 towards your credit card each month, you see it go right back up because you are mismanaging your cash flow. So from a behavioral standpoint, I want us to identify what are the reasons that you are actually in debt. And how are we putting those things? When I was talking about a budget, if you had to put your car tires on your credit card, then you need to put auto maintenance in your plan. So really looking at, why am I actually in debt? And then in thinking about a budget, making sure that you are paying your minimums. If you can accelerate a payment and put more money towards a payment, that's obviously going to bring your credit utilization down, which is going to improve your overall credit score.
But I know that you said briefly about why should we use their credit? Because when I think about businesses that should have lines of credit, should be able to tap into so that they can invest in, would you say that, how would you address that conversation?
So I have good credit, so I haven't had as many challenges with this, but it's still like, it still comes back to, what is your plan for the credit that you are using? So when I have used credit in my business, like I applied for credit cards, I've had lines, I have had relationships as well with banks. I think like use your credit union or use your bank in order to start that line of credit, but also have a plan for how you're going to pay that money back. You don't want to mess up that relationship. Does that answer your question? You want me to say something more?
Well, no, that's fine. I just want folks to get credit before they need credit for their businesses.
Yes, get credit before you need credit, yes. But also, I think it's about managing it well. And I think the conversation that I have a lot with my clients is the management of the credit. I will say that there's also another part of the population and people that come to me that say, like, my parents told me never to use credit cards. So I think if that's the camp that you come from in terms of a negative relationship with debt because you've been told not to have debt, that's more of a psychological thing, and we need to disrupt why debt might be something that you do want to leverage. People don't have a problem with having a mortgage. Technically, that is debt. And so also, for me, that's more of it's mindset in the sense of having a conversation with yourself about why you might actually want to have debt. How could debt actually buy and afford you opportunities? So that's a little bit of a different conversation.
Good debt, bad debt kind of conversation.
Yes, I try not to use good and bad, but yes.
I'm sorry.
And I say that because I think that some things get labeled bad, but if you were a different skin color, they wouldn't get labeled bad.
Okay.
So that's
mortgage is.
It depends. I think when I look at,
there are some barriers that you can overcome to home ownership by getting a mortgage as opposed to paying for a house outright.
Yes, but I also think if you look at society, or even looking at male versus female, like men are encouraged to take risk and to take on debt. So when I say good debt, bad debt, I'm careful with the language because of who's hearing it, because there's different signals sent to different people, different cultural groups.
Okay. Whew. We're going to do Q&A at the end. I'm sorry. All right. I'm sorry. Whew. I am glad I'm moderating. In a way, I should be sitting there because I'm just overwhelmed. Okay. Let's talk about technology. I was just at a conference earlier today that said You don't really need advisors. You can do everything with technology. What would you say to that? Kenneth, we'll start with you.
So I'm an IT guy, right? I got a degree in engineering. I generally consider myself a little maybe forward, a little ahead of many other advisors. One, because I do have some gray hair or losing some of my hair. I'm younger than most advisors. But technology is great when it works, right? Also, when it can give you, technology can't give you the full conversation and full context, right? If you want to put money into, and I'm not even going to name the platforms, but there are many platforms out there, and I want something that tracks the S&P, I want something that tracks this index. It's great when it works, but then who do you call when you're losing money, right? And I got calls from clients who have personal online accounts. I got calls from them late March, early April, when the sky was falling, right? Well, what should I do? Well, I don't manage that account, so unfortunately, I can't provide advice on what you should do with that account. We can talk about your other accounts that I manage, but the account that you have with XYZ online platform, you may want to call their 800 number. and you know, the reality is I didn't want, and I don't ever want to give that answer, but if it's not money that I'm managing, I can't give that client or that individual advice. So what happens is you call the 800 number, you get, depending on how much money you have with them, you're going to get sorted to this group or that group or that group. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to talk to the same person, the same representative each time, right? So then they've got to look at your notes and your history, and then you have to repeat your goals and your concerns and you know, where you are financially. And that takes time, of course. So you don't have someone who's intimately understanding of your situation. And in most cases, what happens is the person comes back to me. And I'm a proponent of folks having their own account with their play money, right? And play money is defined differently for everyone in here, right? But if it's your retirement money, if it's I'm investing this money to buy a house, et cetera, you need to have a conversation with someone that knows your situation and can respond appropriately towards your situation and give you the answers that you want and need.
Some to that. One of my favorite classes of all time is behavioral finance. Because so much of money it was said earlier, is really about your behavior and psychology. It's not, technology is a tool, but how you relate to money, how you think about money is so critical. Let me just give you a really good example. It's pretty well known that individual investors, individual investors tend to do worse than professional investors. And then professional investors themselves have their own issues, right, which is what I do. But individual investors definitely underperform. Why is that? Because they tend to do the exact wrong thing at the exact wrong time. Like it's been proven. So let me give you a really good example. So if you, from the beginning of 2024, 2004 to the end of 2023, so that's 20 years, the stock market returned about 10% per annum, right? So on average, right? Not every year, 10%, right? Up and down, but the average is 10% per year for that 20-year period. So a $10,000 investment would have turned into about $63,000. If in that 20-year period, if you missed the 10 best trading days, so there are 5,000 trading days in that 20-year period, if you just missed 10 of those days, because you pulled your money out, you got scared, whatever, or what have you, your returns fell from 10% to about 5%. Instead of that $10,000 being $63,000, that $10,000 is $30,000. And if I kept going, if you missed the 20 days, that $10,000 turns into $17,000 versus $63,000. And I think that's really jarring. And so and the reason I mention that is because most people typically the best time to buy is when you're, stocks or invest, what have you, is typically when you're panicked. Like the best time to buy the stock market earlier this year was during Liberation Day or leading into it. But the vast majority of people are doing the exact opposite, and then to do that opposite consistently. So this is where I go back to psychology. If your thought process is, I'm trying to make money over the next 2 to 3 weeks or the next month versus the next 10 or 20 years, your behavior is going to be very, very different, right? So how you frame things, how you think about it, how you look at history really helps. And frankly, sometimes some of you all just don't need to look at your accounts at all. Right? Set it, and there's a level of set it and forget. If you have the right advisor, you have the right things in place, you see things fluctuating, just close your statements, come back to it in 5 years, and more than likely you'll be okay, right? So like I said, so technology can help you, but it doesn't, with moments like that, having the intestinal fortitude of somebody who's seasoned to sort of help you think through it and say, listen, stay the course, it's going to be okay. Or maybe, heck, if you have more money, maybe it's a good time to actually invest more money now, right? If you're trying to maximize your wealth.
So one of you talked a bit about this, but sort of talking about balancing for uncertainty versus over-preparing and missing growth opportunities. And I know that there's a risk element involved. So talk to me more about how do you balance that?
Say the question.
Balance over-preparing safety with missing opportunities for those growth opportunities. Should I take this money and make a big investment that may have some risk, because that's a growth opportunity as opposed to the safe space of a high risk or a high yield savings account?
Yeah, it really depends on, what's flowing through your veins, right? I have very different conversations with my 30-something-year-old clients than I do with my 70, 80-year-old clients. Why? They're at different points in their life, right? And so theoretically, there should be different levels of risk based on your age, how many more working years you have, how close you are in retirement, right? And then maybe the third option is, or the last item is legacy. What would you like to pass on to your loved ones, right? But to that point, I've got a 94-year-old client who, fortunately for her, she has pensions, her bills are paid, her expenses are paid. She has done well checking all the boxes in terms of covering things. She's got some extra money. I'd like to put this to work. Now, my job is to kind of back her off the ledge a little bit and say, okay, well, we don't need to go aggressive, but we can go moderately aggressive and maybe define moderately aggressive for her. But to the question, it's just understanding what's going to work for you. Again, I don't want anyone going to bed tossing and turning, worried about what their money's doing or not doing for them, right? So you got to have the conversations. You doing it on your own, you may or may not make the right decision, but having a conversation with the right individuals can help you understand what your psyche is. We go through a process called suitability. Okay, and it's a pretty extensive process to understand, understand your income, understand your net worth, understand your liquid net worth, tax bracket, going through all that, but then also understanding what you understand about the market, right? Are you I know stocks A to Z, I know how to spell stocks, right? I know mutual funds A to Z, I know how to spell mutual fund. So just understanding where you are in that walk, and then helping to put forth a plan that's going to work for you. You've got to understand the psychology of it.
I was going to say understanding what your actual play money is, too. You mentioned play money earlier, and I feel like I hear a lot where people want to, I think the term investing is, people use it in different ways. Like people are like, ooh, I want to buy Apple stock, but they don't have $1,000 saved if something happened. And so really, I think being honest with yourself about, do I have an emergency fund? If I lost my job tomorrow, or if my business didn't make any more sales, like how long could I afford to cover my expenses? So kind of being honest with yourself there. And then asking yourself, what play money do I have, and what happens if this investment doesn't turn out, like best case scenario versus worst case scenario, and thinking about how am I going to feel if I put this $10,000 somewhere and all of a sudden the $10,000 disappears? Yes, I'm going to be a little bit sad, but is it going to mean that I have to, potentially foreclose on my house? So really being honest about what's happening with your own personal situation. And you guys have also mentioned it, like having people that you can actually have conversations with, not just Instagram or social media telling you to take that big risk, but people that have your vested interest and also know a little bit more about your situation so they can poke holes in the investment that you're thinking that you want to take, or even just building, you said, like that comfort level for yourself.
Yeah, somebody mentioned inflation earlier, and I think the real key is, again, once you sort of have your ducks in a row, right, your emergency fund, everything else kind of set, right, there is a point you can actually be too liquid. You can have too much cash sitting in an emergency fund. Like your emergency fund, we can debate how many months. I tend to like a bit longer on the month in terms more like 6 to 12 months, my preference, but regardless, something that's not a day, right, next check kind of thing, right, something that can sustain you. But once you get over a certain point, you have to keep in mind you need to preserve your real purchasing power, right? The prices are going up right now. It's about 3%. It's come down from a lot higher, right, before. So as it turns out, at current day, savings accounts are paying about 4.5%, which actually isn't bad. So this is probably one of the moments one of the moments where even after taxes, you're probably roughly keeping up with inflation, average inflation, right? Things move up at different rates with a savings account. But if you go back, say, 4 years ago, you all remember the 2% mortgages, right, and you were getting 0 on your interest rate. You keeping money in your savings account, right, beyond your emergency account is actually hurting you because prices are going up and your money's not keeping up. So I think there's a point where you can be too liquid. If you have the money, you have your savings account, at that point you start thinking, okay, how can I make this money work for me so when I'm sleeping, I'm growing at a certain rate? It doesn't have to be high risk, right? And also risk depends on your time frame. People say stocks are risky, but if you have a 30-year time frame, you can avoid, you up and down, financial crisis, the pandemic, again, 8 to 9% over 30, 40 years is what it's averaged over that period of time. Yes, if you probably should not have that money in the market if you need it for your home purchase down payment in 5 years. That would not be a good idea. It may work out for you, but it may not, right? You could be down 50%. So I think your time horizon matters, but you should be thinking, once I kind of have a certain level, don't just keep building cash, because you actually, in most cases, or I would argue, losing money on a real basis. You're not keeping up with the rate everything else is going up, inflation in the environment.
Can I just ask everyone to check their savings account and make sure that they're actually getting a high yield? Because the assumption is that we have our money in a high yield savings account,
yes.
But check your bank.
Yep.
Most banks, you are getting 0.01%, which is 2 cents a month, maybe. So that's just a great thing to check. See if your savings account actually gives you a dividend that has something to the left of the decimal and to the right of the decimal point. So a lot of clients come to me and they're like, oh, I didn't know that there was something. But literally, you can go to NerdWallet, Google high yield savings account, transfer that money somewhere to make you money.
So I had asked a question earlier about technology, and I really ask. I mean, I'm glad the moderator, because I don't know jack squat. The question that I have is, when we're planning these things and we're thinking about making investments, how does crypto line in your mindset? Okay, I want words.
So I don't have the conversation with my clients because as an advisor, I can only talk about those investments that are regulated by the SEC. Okay, and with crypto, it's kind of a wild, wild west. Thank you. I was getting there. Yes, wild, wild west, and so we don't have those conversations, unfortunately. I mean, I understand it, and clients will ask questions, but I quickly let them know, whoever your crypto guy is on IG or TikTok or whatever, that's the person.
But are we going to be 30 years from now saying, like we said about Apple, I wish I had gotten it then?
So let me just tell you my perspective. This is not financial advice, okay? All right, I'm just letting you know.
Disclaimer,
Disclaimer, right. I should have said up front. I'm going to say what I do personally with crypto, and it's exactly to what you said, Amy. I understand stocks, I understand companies, I understand you buy inventory and you sell it at a higher price. I understand you have a piece of software that you developed and you sell it and it has, these are the KPIs that you look for. Like that I can conceptually understand. I understand things that generate cash flow. I can actually value a company that generates cash flow. That's what I'm trained to do. So that I'm comfortable with. Real estate, so on and so forth. An asset that essentially is going up because other people are buying it. And I understand, it's a unregulated, decentralized currency, et cetera. But what I find with most people buying crypto because crypto keeps going up. That's really what it comes down to. Because when it crashed 2 or 3 years ago, I remember calling some friends saying, are you doubling up now? Because this seems like a great time to buy if you're really that convinced. Most people just don't understand it, and I don't like buying things I don't fully understand. However, the caveat is what I've done personally is I bought an exchange that does crypto, so that way, because there is a chance it could become the next.
Say that again. Say that again.
So like a stock, it's like a crypto exchange, right? So like a stock exchange. So this way, it's the concept of this, right? If there's a gold rush, I don't know if there's gold in the land or not, but I don't mind selling you a bunch of picks and shovels because I'm definitely going to make money, right? Because if I sell you to all the people who are excited about that, picks and shovels, yeah, maybe there's gold, maybe there's not, but either way I make money. So the concept is, okay, there are things that facilitate crypto trade, right? I'm humble enough to realize that, listen, I don't know. Maybe it does end up becoming something pretty significant. Obviously, this new administration is pushing it. I don't understand it, but I also know there's a lot of things I don't know, and you may look back and say, man, this thing actually turned out to be something significant. So I have a small percentage of that, right? Single digits, personally, low single digits. Because if it's that good, it'll get a lot bigger. But I'm not like trading it. I'm not investing a big chunk of my life savings, nothing like that. I have a nice stable core, but I have sort of this option in case it becomes something really significant, just to have some exposure to it, right? But this way, I don't have to pick which currency is going to be the winner. Because if it's just a platform that facilitates crypto trade, then again, is the concept of selling picks and shovels to those people looking at, searching for gold. So that's how I've approached it, but then I don't spend any more time doing research. I don't read crypto books. That's just not my thing. That's fine if it's your thing. I'm not knocking it, but it's just not something I feel comfortable with because I don't fully understand it, nor do I feel like there's enough predictability because there's no cash flow for me to invest a significant amount of money into it.
I do like that approach, though, that you get selling the picks and the shovels. I like that mindset. Okay. Now, for those of us business owners and folks who are experiencing lack of clarity in our income, what are the things what are the tips and takeaways that we should be mindful of as we wrap this up? Because then, folks, you should have your questions ready because we're going next, right? To recession-proof our income.
I think we touched on a little earlier. If you obviously work for yourself, or if you have a 9 to 5, also looking for alternatives to bring in income, or maybe some passive ways to bring in income. Real estate could be one area, and I'm not suggesting everyone rush out and find, go online and find the next house to buy. But real estate is another area where, we're in. I think we'll call it a bubble, right? Where real estate challenges in other areas of the U.S. don't necessarily hit us as hard, or even hit us. But there are, I go in and out of Petworth, and there's plenty of houses in D.C. that you think, well, they're on the market, they're going to sell in X days. Well, some of them have been on the market for several months, and I looked at one yesterday. I was walking by, and it happened. I just quickly looked it up because that's what I do, and it's been on the market for over a year, and the price has been reduced $500K in that time frame. And I think it's just got, nice house, nice renovations, but it's just got some things associated with it that aren't going to find 20 buyers, right? Small lot, funky corner where it's situated, parking is a little challenging, that sort of thing. But looking at some passive ways to bring in income that you can hustle and work on today, and then 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you don't have to put in the same time and effort. That's still bringing in a check for you each week, each month. But secondly, just making sure that, and Keena spoke about it, you got to know your numbers, right? We know what's coming in every 2 weeks or every month. We got to know what's going out. And I'll just speak to a couple things. How many of you have reviewed your auto insurance recently? Right? I mean, I've had USAA for 20 years, but I do check with other providers because I want to make sure that the numbers that we're writing checks for, well, actually my wife writes the checks. She handles the money. It's a funny thing, right? But I want to make sure that the check that we're writing and the premium that we're paying for is competitive, right? Homeowners insurance, auto insurance, should I bundle it? All the subscriptions that we have to streaming services and such. I'm a sports guy. I don't do the NFL, NBA, but I actually found, one streaming service with ESPN Plus. It added $5 to my monthly bill. Okay, I can deal with $5, right? But I'm not going to pay $70 a month, $90 a month for anybody's sports. I don't need to sit down and do nothing but watch a game all day. So just looking at everything that's going out of your account, making sure that it's where it needs to be, right? Because a few dollars here and there, I annualize everything, right? So $5 a month, not a big deal, but $60 over the year, that $60 could go towards something else, right? It's real money at that point. So if anything, and I don't generally tell folks what to do, I strongly suggest to adults, right? So I'm giving you a strong suggestion. When you leave here, when you go home, look at what you're spending, right? And then make those appropriate phone calls, emails, so that you can affect some change, and that should help you.
All right, let's go to the questions.
Great. So we'll move into a few questions. We're running out of time. So at what age or point in life do you suggest individuals obtain a financial coach or advisor?
From the coaching perspective, any age. I literally have a client who's 77 right now, and I have a client who's 25, so it's the gamut. I would say the thing that I see the most with people is they're waiting for the perfect time, but you're losing money waiting for the perfect time. So just push I'm always like, just jump in the pool. Like you get used to cold water. And so if money is like kind of a low hum in your life that you just you kind of don't notice it anymore, but it is something that comes up for you, at least reach out and have a conversation to get some next steps.
Okay. What suggestions would you have for finding a tax professional for your business?
I would suggest, I presume most of us know other business owners. So get a referral from someone who is happy, comfortable, pleased with the individual that they're working with. Otherwise, you can speak to one of us. I'm sure we have a handful of folks, but someone who's in a similar situation and someone over coffee or lunch who said, I really like my tax professional, right? They're comfortable putting it on the table. Someone who says, that's not the person you talk to, right?
And interview them. Don't just go with one, because you really need to feel comfortable with somebody, because you got to tell the truth, right? You have to have somebody that you will be comfortable showing your warts.
And I would say, for me, when I'm thinking about working with financial professionals, I want someone who will educate me, is willing to have conversation. If they aren't willing to answer questions for me, or not that I want to be my own financial advisor or my own accountant, but are you willing to explain why this is happening? Because I want the knowledge. I'm not just looking for ooh, can you help me write off a car? I want to be thinking about how can I better understand what's going on with my numbers.
I had a client share with me, she was in distress because her financial advisor would not talk to her accountant in a way that was open. And matter of fact, the advisor quit, said, because, I don't need someone who's going to be sort of watching over me. So that's a whole mell of a hess.
That's another good point, though. Like, are your financial professionals willing to correspond with one another? Like, I do a lot. Sometimes I'll CC somebody on my, my accountant might say something to my CFP. And so, like, I like that that's a relationship. I don't think I've named it explicitly, but it's nice to know that, like, I don't always have to be the person that connects them in terms of, like, this is what they said. Let me try to translate it.
Yeah, many times there is a little power struggle. And it's a question of who's driving the bus, right? And I generally feel that the tax professional is the one, right? Because if he or she is worth their certifications, degrees, then he should have a decent understanding of budgeting and financial literacy. They should have a decent understanding of financial advising. They're not going to know all the bells and whistles and all the nuances of it, but they also understand how it affects them from a tax perspective, right? So I'm very good at staying in my lane. While I understand taxes and understand how to complete taxes, I'm always going to defer to the tax professional.
Okay. So our next question: should we name a separate person as a financial guardian to handle money for our children versus a daily caregiver?
Yeah, so as a definitely, because there are sometimes you want someone who is nurturing, caring, and loving, and that nurturing, caring, loving person may not say no, right? But we also know that sometimes the co-parent is the guardian and can't manage $47.50. So you need to be really thoughtful about who's going to care for your child through the loving piece. They have guardianship of the person, guardianship of the property. There is segregation of those roles on purpose.
Okay, and we'll do one more question. What should we be included in the Advanced Healthcare Directive or Living Will? What should be included?
So, okay, you should identify who's going to make decisions for you regarding your health care, as well as what you want the decisions to be. Like the living will sounds like a misnomer, but it's because people think it's about death. It's about life-sustaining treatment. If I want to be on a ventilator, if I want to have nutrition and hydration provided me through tube feedings. Those are the things that would be included with the advanced health care. And you know what? The other part about that is sometimes the decision may change based on who's paying for it, as an FYI. I would just throw in the financial piece there.
Okay, and we'll do one last question. I have good credit and I pay the amount I spend regularly, or I have good credit and I pay the amount I spend regularly. Keep it low. How can I get my credit score increased?
I think that they pay off their credit cards regularly. Balance is what I'm understanding, but they want to have an increase in their credit score.
Yeah, so I think we touched on it earlier. Many cases, it boils down to how much available credit you have, and then how consistent you are about paying off your cards. I'm not a credit expert. I, again, stay in my lane. But so I just want you to take this, receive this as just words, not advice, right? Disclaimer. But the other side
Education, not advice.
Right. The other side is I work with two individuals who are credit experts, right? And they have both said, separate conversations, that actually paying your credit card off in full sometimes actually works against you. Carrying a small balance, and I say small, right? $100, $80 on a card actually can help it elevate it. But again, it's only a couple points. So I'm a big fan of having as little debt as possible. So it really depends on the situation. Everyone's situation here, credit-wise, is different. So you're going to have 100 different answers in here.
I think we're supposed to be 11:50 was our time frame?
Yes, so that's our time. There was one or two questions about the resources. I'll follow up with that, find out what we're going to do with the resources, and then someone will make an announcement before the conference is over where you can find the materials. All right.
Thank you so much. I want to thank each and every one of our panelists who are Kayode, Kana, Kan. Oh, 3 Ks and an A. Right. Enjoy the rest of the conference, y'all.